Welcome to the Transform My Dance Studio podcast, the only podcast dedicated to helping you grow your dance studio while reclaiming your life. It's Clint Salter here, the CEO and founder of the Dance Studio Owners Association. And for the next 8 weeks, we're bringing you a very special series of podcast episodes with dance studio owners Jane Grech and Melanie Gard, who are also part of our Inner Circle program. Over these next 8 episodes, Jane and Mel will be sharing their own challenges, successes, experiences, and advice as dance studio owners. Welcome to this very special podcast event at the bar with Jane and Mel. I hope you enjoy it.
Hello and welcome to the At the Bar podcast, a podcast for studio owners by studio owners. My name is Melanie Gard and I am joined by my very good friend and fellow lover of the beach and coffee, Jane Grech. How are you today, Jane?
I'm very well. Thank you for asking, Miss Mel. Yes, coffee and the beach, 2 things I could not live without.
Yeah, that's right. We bonded over our fellow love of all things dance, but also over coffee and the beach, I think.
Yes, 100%. And very excited to chat on our 3rd episode.
Yes, 3 episodes in. So if you haven't checked out our previous 2 episodes, we covered last episode the topic of motherhood, which for Jane and I, between us, we both have 6 kids, which is, I guess, a fair amount.
It's enough for me.
Yeah, we're totally outnumbered by them all, which is all good. But this week we thought we'd shift our focus away from motherhood and to our other area of, I suppose, parenting, which is our teams. We thought we'd talk about managing the teams that we have within our respective studios and the challenges that we face in balancing, managing different personalities within those teams. Now, my studio, I have about 450 students and a team of around 12 staff. Your studio is substantially bigger, Jane, but we both have a fair amount of people that are reporting to us. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how your team's structured?
Yeah, so I've got about 20 people in my team, and really that is too many that now report to me. That's only a fairly recent change. Previously, I had around about 8 reporting to me, and the rest were reporting to someone else, and that worked quite well. And I probably will need to get back to that. So that's my first point: is if you've got any more than around about 20 people, you're going to need some help, because humans are beautifully, wonderfully complicated beings, and they do take a lot of time if you're leading them well. And it's a very large part of what I do in the week. At least 50% of what I do is now pertaining to other people, leadership roles or planning for other people, planning out what I would like them to do with their time and things like that, as well as touching base with them and supporting and coaching and mentoring them. So I want to kind of start off by saying this is an area, you know, I can talk about this till the cows come home. Very Australian saying, that one, isn't it?
It sure is.
Because it is an area of passion for me, but a lot of the time it doesn't get the attention it deserves. So I think that it's useful. We're chatting about it today. And, just having the conversation. If you're not doing anything intentional to lead your team, just ask yourself the question, how can I make that change? It doesn't have to be groundbreaking, but it might be just a 5-minute chat, scheduling a 5-minute chat once a week with one of your team members or something. That's my scenario.
Yeah. I think that's a real transition for people, isn't it? Often, we start our studios and we might be the only teacher, or we might have one other teacher. And then as your studio grows, all of a sudden you find yourself with a team that's getting bigger as well, because we can't teach every single class if the studio is growing. And I think sometimes that's a struggle, isn't it, for some studio owners to make that transition into being a leader of a team.
Yeah. And it's hard work.
Start out to do they?
No, it's hard work, and it's not something I set out to do. I am a ballet teacher through and through. Ballet was my first real love. And, you know, I'm 100% at ease in the studio, but I've had a lot of training to be the ballet teacher that I am. You know, I'm a qualified dance teacher. I did ballet since I was 3. I may, according to my father, be in a leadership position since I was 3 as well, but that was never formalised greatly.
It was in my family. I'm the eldest child. So
you're the eldest child. You were the leader. So all of a sudden we find ourselves with all of these people looking at us and we're looking back at them. None of us really know how to navigate it, and that's fair enough. It's natural to feel out of your depth, and I've done a lot of work around the subject, and I still feel out of my depth at times.
And I think I really liked the way that you said you spend about 50% of your time working with your team, and I think that's a really good point, that we get really busy within our studios, and if we're not actually dedicating specific time to managing our team, then that falls by the wayside and can get really lost in amongst the busyness of a studio, can't it?
Oh, absolutely. And also because it sometimes can be like things are just ticking over nicely, and just the human bias is that we don't often give attention to things that are going well. We turn our attention to the spot fires, to the things that are apparently urgent, you know, the little disasters here and there. And anything involving people, if you can be proactive instead of reactive, and you can look at that as an investment of your time, as we do in the studio. You know, I set with my students in the first week of a new season, welcome to Miss Jane's class now. This is what I expect of you, you know, and I spend the first couple of weeks really kind of laying my expectations. Then the rest of the year in that class is happy days. Everyone knows where they stand. So I'm taking a proactive approach rather than waiting for the students to do something that I deem inappropriate and then saying, oh, no, we don't do that here. And that's the same approach, I think, with people. Is often we wait until something happens and they might behave in a way that we deem inappropriate and then say, oh, actually, by the way, you've broken the rule there, but they don't know what the rules are. And it's unfair on them to be only reacting. So, but boy, it takes a lot of time.
It takes time, and I think, yes, so much time. And I think the other thing too is, I mean, I don't know about you, but for me, I find it really easy to manage those situations with my students because at the end of the day, I'm the adult and they're kids. So the relationship is really simple, you know, in that respect, because you are the leader, you create the rules, and we know that kids make mistakes and we're there to help them learn and develop through the class. When a team member potentially makes a mistake or maybe does something that's not in line with what you would deem as appropriate, it's harder, isn't it? It's harder to deal with that because we're dealing with adults. And, I thought it'd be interesting to talk through that, you know, how we actually deal with the different personalities, how we approach them. I was reflecting on that before because I definitely find it easier with my students than I do.
Yeah, agree 100%. I do as well, just because you are just because of the situation the way it is, the person in charge, and that's a socially accepted norm that the teacher is the one that lays the expectations. Definitely for emerging leaders, I think this is a very real challenge that you've brought up. However, I think as you mature as a leader, you get more comfortable with that. Interestingly, I did, and we'll talk about personalities in a minute, but I did a version of a personality test which gave me 2 words. Right, you'll be shocked by these words because they describe how the world sees me. Right, one was passion. Whoa, shock!
Oh, surprise.
I know. Yes, unusual. And the other one, which actually did shock me a little bit, was power. And power is not a word that I'm particularly comfortable with, because I don't like to see myself as more anything than someone else. And I mean more important, more valuable, more anything than anybody else. But the fact of the matter is, I do have a big business. It's here because I'm the one that's taken the risk to make it happen. Yeah. And these people are actually reporting to me. And at the end of the day, it's me that's got the most to lose here. And in my situation, my school's under my name. It's called the Jane Grech Dance Centre. I've been in the industry for 25 years and I've built a good reputation. And we all know that they take a long time to build and a short amount of time to lose. And so therefore I am in a position of power. And I think just reminding ourselves of that and saying that it's okay. You know, if these people are your employees, it doesn't mean to treat them with disrespect or speak down to them. You know, that we need to keep our ego in check.
Absolutely.
But I think just giving yourself that, well, let's say empowering yourself to just remember that actually until they've got their own business, they are working for you. And you are okay to call some shots. Do it nicely. But if there is stuff that's going on that is out of alignment with your organisation, you are within your rights to hold people accountable to that. And don't feel bad about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you and I have had this conversation before a few times. I know when I've shared my frustrations, you know, little things that will happen within my studio. This is, you know, a small example, but, you know, someone not seeing that the air conditioner is being left on overnight. Because at the end of the day, they don't pay that bill. They don't see that bill come in and they don't see that money go out. So I find that really hard sometimes to get my head around, you know. And I know I've shared that frustration with you.
You have, and I've reciprocated it. And my mother owns a Pilates studio. There's another business here on site, a beauty therapist. We had coffee yesterday, the three of us, same frustrations. I think, you know, it's just like, this just popped into my head, so I haven't thought it through. It might not come out quite right, but it's a little bit like when you put your child in daycare, right? Childcare. Now, those people are looking after your child really well. Really well. That's why they're there. My children went to a really good daycare centre a couple of days a week. But there's something about the mother that has her own way of doing things. So often I'd pick them up and I'd think, I didn't realise she had her T-shirt on inside out all day. And I would have changed that.
Yes.
They're looking at her well-being is looked after, she's had a sleep, she's eaten, she's played with her friends, and she's not naked. So that's a win. But, I would have gone, come here, probably Caitlin in this instance, and let me put your T-shirt on the right way around. It's back to front.
Yeah.
So it's just that little extra care, and maybe having peace with that might lower our frustration levels, possibly.
Yes, definitely. I totally agree with you. I think also too, it's also coming to terms with, I guess there's a balance between making sure that your team are doing things that align with your organisational values and all those sorts of things. And then there's that little grey area where they're not all going to do everything the same, are they? They're all going to have their own unique style and spin, whether that's, in an administration role or in a teaching capacity. Everyone's going to approach something slightly differently. So it's relinquishing that idea that not everyone's going to do things the way I would do them, and that's okay. It doesn't mean it's wrong. And that's, I think, for some of us that, we like to control a lot.
That's the word, isn't it? That's the word. You hit it there. It's control. And we are, there's so much to unpack in what you just said, and I'm with you on it. But it is about allowing for difference and to a degree celebrating it as well. Yeah.
I know. It's one of the really tricky things, and I think it's definitely something that evolves. I guess it brings me to another point that I was reflecting on about, as we grow, we understand ourselves better as we grow. I shouldn't say grow. I'm not growing anymore. I've stopped growing.
I'm hoping to. Well, parts of me are still growing now.
As I'm aging gracefully, I understand more and more about myself. And when I mean myself, I mean my personality, the reason why I respond to certain things in a certain way. I think the more that we can understand ourselves, the easier it is to relate to other people. I don't know. I don't know what you think around that.
Yep.
But I know.
No, you're right.
The more I've understood my own strengths and weaknesses and the reasons why I respond the way I do, the better I am at responding to other people within my team.
Well, with anything regarding leadership, it always starts with ourselves, and we can't seek to understand others unless we can understand ourselves first. That's a process. I'm not sure I do understand myself completely. There are times that I think, woman, pull yourself together. But there are other times that, I know exactly why I'm responding in the way I am. And that is helpful to me. And when people don't respond in a way perhaps I would, I can see that that's not a failure on their part, but just that they're a different being. And again, it's a tension, isn't it? Because it would be terrible if we were all the same, but sometimes it would be quite useful as well.
Make things a little bit easier along the way, wouldn't it?
It would definitely speed things along in terms of a lot of stuff. But so it is what it is. It's not gonna change. So therefore, we do need to spend time unpacking our own personalities.
Yes.
How deep you want to go obviously is a personal mission.
But maybe like as simple as, I know that I am better talking to people. I'm not great with text messages, for example, really simple thing. I don't mind texting. It's functional and it's easy. But for me, I really gain a lot from the way, the intonation in someone's voice, seeing their face. All of those things are really important and just help me in my communication. But I have some people in my team that's not the case for. They would much prefer to communicate via email or text if it's something really straightforward.
Sure.
And
I'm one of those people now. Yeah, I'm one of those people. Yep.
Yeah, and it's just understanding that and going, okay, well that's an easier way for me to communicate with Jane because that's what she needs. And then whereas another team member, I've got some team members that need lots of coaxing and lots of reinforcement, you know who I'm talking about. So it's trying to work that through, for each member of your team when you're supporting them too.
Here's a useful tip that I don't know whether I've shared it with you, but I certainly haven't shared it with the world. But something we do here fairly recently, in the last couple of years anyway, is we ask our current team their preferred contact method. I'm just sitting here looking at the sheet because it's right next to my screen here. So we've got our little chart. It's got our name, our preferred contact method, and then, the contact details. And, here I've got text message or email, phone, call if urgent. Because they've got different things going on as well. Sometimes they might not be able to respond to a phone call, but they can quickly send a sneaky text in between other appointments and things. So that helps 99% of the time. It's not fail safe.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a great tip, Jane. You mentioned earlier too, and we might try and make sure it's in the show notes. You mentioned there was another personality test that you did that came out with those two words. What was that called?
Oh, right, yeah. So there's been some great work. I mean, the main thing people can look at if they want to know about their personality, the most accepted kind of way of measuring that is the Myers-Briggs test. It's quite full on, but there are online versions. The best one I can recommend is 16, the number 16, followed by personalities.com. So 16personalities.com is a really good resource. The other one is by Sally Hogshead, and Hogs, and as in Hogs, and then head, Sally Hogshead. And she looks at, it actually flips it in that the 16 personalities work and the Myers-Briggs work is about how you see yourself. Whereas, Sally's work focuses on how the world sees you, because sometimes there is a little bit of I guess, difference in those two things. I'm just struggling to remember the exact name of her test off the top of my head. But if you Google Sally Hogshead, she's got brilliant resources. And again, it's an online test. You can do it free. You can pay for a much more detailed report, but you can do it free. And we did that in my leadership team, and it was fascinating. We really unpacked so much about, do we have time for me to just share a really quick example?
Yeah, definitely. Yep. I think we'll do that and then we'll wrap up. Sounds
cool.
good.
Okay. So one of our team members is very, very focused. Now, you know, I like a chat, and I'm probably the most distracting person in our office, actually, if I'm being very honest.
No.
But we all like a bit of a chat, and then we can get back to work. One of my team members is often doesn't kind of come on board with that, you know. So we'll be maybe four of us having a chat and a laugh, and she'll appear to not want to be part of it. So it comes across as a bit aloof, and like she's not part of the team. And it was always a little bit frustrating to me. We did this test and it came out about how she really just has laser sharp focus. And you know what? She doesn't even hear those conversations. She just is able to get into this zone. I'm jealous. Get into this zone and be so laser sharp focused that we could have been over in the corner standing on our head, and probably sometimes we were, and she wouldn't have even noticed. And when that came back to her, that report came back to her, she was like, oh, I never knew that about myself. And we were all sitting there going, oh, you're not being rude. And it was fabulous. And also it wasn't personal. I mean, it sounds personal, but it wasn't, because we had this kind of report that gave us the framework to have a discussion about it.
Yes.
Like, and if I hadn't have had that, I wonder how that would have played out. You know, would it all kept on going and we would never have talked about it, and I'm still sitting here thinking, oh my gosh, she's so rude. Why won't she just have a laugh, lighten up?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's a fantastic example, Jane. Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing.
Gold star to me.
Gold star to you. Well, once again, the time has flown by, my friend.
Oh my goodness, it has today.
I feel like we have only just begun this
We've only just
conversation.
begun. We can chat more.
So to wrap up, Jane, we were just going to wrap up with our top 3 tips on managing personalities within our team, or teamwork. Would you like to start us off?
Yeah, I would, because then that way you can't steal mine and I might say some of yours. And well, So the first one is your way. There's that phrase, my way or the highway. You need to let go of that. So we touched on it, and it's important to acknowledge that we're all different. It's very tricky, but that there are other ways to do things, and you don't always have to get your own way, and you can't always expect people to react like you. My second one kind of mirrors that, actually, so we'll kind of tie those together, because I've got here number 1, that your way is not the only way, and number 2 is that we are actually all different. So I've covered those off together, but as simple as that sounds, it is harder in practice. And my third one is my favourite one, is that you'll probably never nail it. So humans are so amazing. I love them. They're complicated, they're messy, they're colourful, they're wonderful. And just when you think you've got it figured out, a new one will come along. And all of the strategies that may have worked brilliantly with a previous team member, you go and you replicate all of those on your new team member and you get a completely different outcome. And so a little bit like teaching, isn't it? You know,
absolutely. Like parenting too. I'm thinking,
yeah,
been here for us.
Yes, as are yours. You know, our children are all there, and they've got a lot
different.
Yeah, so much that separates them. There's obviously a thread that unites them, but so much so they're own people. And so it is an evolving process. Just when you think you've got it figured out, you'll get a new challenge, and that's okay. Like unless you want to kind of have some peace about that, you're always going to have a frustration about.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's fantastic. Thanks, Jane. Well, my 3 tips. So my first one really just pulls together what we've some of the things that we've been talking about in terms of learning about yourself and understanding yourself. So I think we'll make sure some of those links to those resources are in the show notes. I think they're really helpful. If you haven't done the 16 personalities test, I think that's a really free, easy, useful one. And I haven't seen anyone do that haven't read the end and thought, oh no, that's not me. It's a pretty accurate little summary, so it's worth doing. My second one, which we didn't really touch on this, and we might cover off in another podcast, was really acknowledging the little things that your team members do and investing in any way you can. And it might just be saying thank you for something, or it might be sending them off to a course, or so trying to bring out the best in people, I guess, is what I'm trying to say there. And use that. So focus on the strengths within your team.
Yeah, definitely.
And my third point is that if there are things that are not going so well within your team, to just rip off the Band-Aid. Just put on your big girl pants and really think about, okay, if something's not working well here, what can I do to address it within our team? Because the thing is, the team's probably feeling the same. If there's some irkiness there, people aren't feeling great. If you're not feeling great, they're probably not feeling great either. So I encourage people to, maybe chat to another studio owner or somebody else in business that manages a team, and you'll probably find they've experienced the same issues. So,
yeah. I agree 100% on that last point, especially. Yeah. It's not easy. It does get easier, but it's never particularly easy, but it does come with the territory, and ignoring it. Just like anything, with your mental health or your physical health, ignoring it rarely results in a positive outcome. So it's the same here. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Jane, the time has flown by. I really love today's discussion, and I'm going to go and look up that Sally Hogshead resource. That sounds
great. And tell us your words, perhaps.
I will. I'll report back on our next podcast.
Beautiful. Thanks, Miss Mel.
All right. Take care.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of our exclusive series At the Bar, powered by the Transform My Dance Studio podcast. For more training, resources, and support specifically for dance studio owners who are wanting to grow their business while reclaiming their life, we'd love you to join us in the Dance Studio Owners Association. For all the information, go to dsoa.com. Take care, and we'll see you next week.